So who are the winners and who are the losers when it comes to the Battle of the Windsors? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany and today we're going to be talking about just a little bit about part 2 of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's reality TV show, Harry and Meghan. I just finished it, and I will say part 2 was much more interesting than part 1. Part 1 I think could have been condensed into one single episode because there was nothing really all that interesting in it and nothing that we didn't already know. So I felt like that whole bit was a bit of a wash. However, part 2 definitely had some juicy moments, and I will go over all that in more detail with you guys in a later video. However, today I wanted to talk about really at the end of the day who won and who lost in this Battle of the Windsors, because today at the end of the day, and I don't think this is something Netflix planned, definitely something Harry and Meghan weren't looking forward to, I don't think, but Catherine had her Together at Christmas carol event, and the entire royal family and her family attended it. And it was a beautiful sign of unity within the family. And I think really does prove that at the end of the day, despite the money or whatever accolades Harry and Meghan might win from this reality TV show, which I honestly don't think will be a lot. I think a lot of people came to revile it a little bit. It may get some nominations in Hollywood, it may not. That remains to be seen. But when I look at the two sides, Harry and Meghan and their little enclave and their bitterness and spitefulness and vengeance against the royal family, and then I see the rest of the royals walking out to Westminster with their head held high, ignoring the criticism, ignoring the hate spewed at them from the other side of the Atlantic, I think, you know what? The Windsors, they've won, Harry and Meghan. They have won this battle, and I think at the end of the day, they will most definitely win the war because Harry and Meghan grossly miscalculated on numerous levels. And I'm going to go over with you guys a bit of why I think Harry and Meghan are the losers in this scenario and why I think the Windsors win, especially the Waleses. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany and I provide compelling royal commentary on the latest news and sometimes a little bit of gossip too. I will be also reviewing television shows and movies and sharing history as well. So if you guys are interested, feel free to subscribe because I have had like over 12 million people watch my videos and I'm only at 70,000 subscribers and I love all of you, but if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. That would be absolutely fabulous. I had a little bit of a dream of making it to 100,000 by the end of the year. I don't think that'll happen, but I was thinking, well, maybe at least if I can make it to 50. And I definitely made it to 50, guys. So that is a huge win. But to make it to 100K, I realized that's a bit of a stretch the last couple of weeks before the end of the year. It could happen. Who knows? And I also have a fashion channel, Royal Fashion News, which I've been working on. Everything with Harry and Meghan has taken up a lot more real estate. So I'll be just posted a video about the Lotus Flower tiara. So we have Tiara Tuesdays, a review of the fashion looks of the week, usually dropping on Saturday or Sunday. In addition, I have other videos I'm planning to wrap up for the end of the year. In addition, I have a trip to London coming up. So if you would love to go to London with me, I would love to have you. It would be, brava, such a wonderful, wonderful time. And I will be doing a video, I know I've promised this for a bit, video explaining what we'll be doing and how I'm so excited about this trip. And it'll be right after the coronation or a couple of weeks around Memorial Day. And so I am super, super stoked. But like I said, Harry and Meghan. So just general thoughts on this. This one was a lot more, I would say, muddied and not quite as clear as the first one was. The first one, it was boring. It just wasn't engaging. It wasn't interesting. And you really had to absolutely love Harry and Meghan to, I feel like, really truly enjoy it. And I'm just not, not a fan. So I was like, it's all right. But I will say, Series 2 did give us, part 2 did give us a lot more and some really interesting tidbits. One of the biggest, I would say, bombshells you could say, and perhaps one that Harry and Meghan didn't want us necessarily to notice or really take note of, is that the royal family trusts Meghan so little, they wanted her completely off the entire continent before they started the Sandringham Summit. They wanted her out of the country, off of the continent. They didn't want her anywhere near this. And I think it goes to show that at the end of the day, the royal family, regardless of what you think about the different relationship dynamics and everything, they didn't trust Meghan as far as they could throw her. There was literally no trust there at the end with Megxit. And it also is very apparent too that this is just one gigantic vanity project. Harry and Meghan think so highly of themselves that they are the best royals ever. That the royal family would give in to their demands, bend over backwards in order to keep them, because they are so special and important to the royal family. And at the end of the day, I just want to say, guys, you do know that like Edward VIII, he was king for a bit and they forced him to abdicate and life went on. So at the end of the day, I think and he was enormously popular, much like Harry. So Harry's very much followed the path of his great uncle. But the monarchy, like anything else, it goes on. Queen Elizabeth II will go down as one of the greatest queens in British history. And she was the spare, essentially. She was not supposed to be queen. So in many ways, Harry and Meghan vastly overestimated their importance to the royal family, to the royal fold. Because like anything, I feel like it's important to note and understand that to a certain extent, not as an intrinsic human being with an intrinsic worth, but when it comes to a job, a sporting event, something like that, somebody will replace you and perhaps they'll do it worse, but maybe, you know, they'll do it better. This idea that Meghan and Harry had is that they were so critical, the monarchy would not lose them because they were so crucial to the future of it and to the future of the Commonwealth. And I will also say, I feel like my vibe here is pretty good that Meghan really thought of herself as queen on the Commonwealth, which is silly because she wasn't ever going to be. She was the vice president of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, but she really thought she was going to be queen of it. In addition, we also saw a lot of obsession on Diana. They are obsessed with her. Even Lilibet is just like Diana, guys. She's just like Diana. She has those beautiful Spencer eyes, and she might. But I feel like you guys obsess about her so much, they use her constantly to justify their actions. And so with that, I will go into my first point about why Harry and Meghan are the losers in this scenario. When you're watching the documentary, this is not as evident in the initial one, but they entirely base their argument on Diana. Meghan is the next Diana. Meghan was hounded like Diana. Meghan, the paparazzi threatened her like they've threatened Diana. Ergo, she may die like Diana did, even though Diana died in a driving accident. Like I said, Lilibet, they believe Lilibet is the incarnation, essentially, of Diana, which I don't feel like is healthy for any child. I feel like even when I look at the Wales as kids, it's great to see who they look like, but I'm not going to go, oh, Charlotte, she's the next Diana. Or George, he's going to be the next Charles. Let the kids develop their own personalities. Let them develop their own desires and wants and needs and everything like that. Let them grow into themselves rather than forcing a ghost on them. And that's what I feel like Harry and Meghan were bordering on a bit, is forcing the ghost of Diana on Lilibet. But they're definitely forcing the ghost of Diana on Meghan. And I feel like that makes them a bit of the loser. I hate to say it because I know there's a lot of Diana lovers out there, and this is not to disparage Diana in any way, but she passed away 25 years ago. What she experienced and the reaction to her death means that the British press mostly doesn't operate in the same way they did when Diana was alive. They don't. They don't rush and pack out of royal anymore. There are very strict rules and guidelines between the royal rota and the paparazzi and the royals. We do not see paparazzi shots of the Wales as much. Not at all. Occasionally a picture gets out of the kids walking around with their mom or being out with their dad, something like that, but those don't happen often anymore because there is an understanding, because of how Diana died, that hey, both sides agreed this was bad for all of us. We all lost something here. Let's come together and let's figure out a way to work within the system so that the public can see the children without stalking the children. And that's what happens. There is a random paparazzi from time to time that tries to stalk the family. We had evidence of this earlier this year. There was a video that was published of this guy who was apparently trying to stalk, at that time, the Cambridges around Amner Hall up there in Norfolk. And William called him out for it. And William is very protective of his family, like extremely so. So I imagine that he was pretty miffed. And so this video did get pulled down, but again, this rarely happens. There is a respect there. There's an understanding that there's an interest, but they really do try not to intrude too much. So this idea that Meghan experienced the same level of obsession that Diana did, just didn't happen. She didn't even experience anything like what the then Kate Middleton did. Meghan Markle never had 20 to 30 photographers following her while she was walking down the street when she was 25. When Harry and Meghan started dating, Meghan was 35. And so the comparisons between Meghan and Diana don't even work. They were not remotely the same age. Meghan met Harry when she was around the same age Diana died. So these women are separated by essentially 15 years when they came into the royal fold. Diana was this naive 19-year-old girl. Meghan was a moderately successful actress who had a blog, who traveled the world. So Diana and Meghan, their worlds were vastly different. Their experiences were vastly different. Meghan wasn't stalked in the same way. They had to use stocked and archival footage to try to even remotely make that argument. And it just didn't work. It just really didn't work because everybody called him out. Hey, that picture's a stock image. Hey, that picture's from a Harry Potter premiere. Hey, that's from an entirely different court case with Katie Price that had nothing to do with Harry and Meghan. And that's a problem because your credibility becomes on the line. And so I feel like Harry and Meghan, this obsession with trying to make the public believe that Meghan Markle is the next Diana because Harry believes this. Harry is I feel like what came across to me throughout this whole thing is that Harry lives in his own little delusion and so does Meghan. I think their delusions are different because I think Meghan's delusions inform Harry's delusions, but they really truly think Meghan is the next Diana. And Meghan's PR team from Sunshine Sachs constantly perpetuated this idea to them. And she's not. And even most of Harry's family members who met Meghan thought she really had nothing in common with Diana, except for some of her worst qualities. And so this comparison that they keep trying to make just doesn't work. And they even had Tyler Perry on the final episode because he's the one who lent them the jet, he lent them the home, all those sorts of things. He's a good friend now. He's the godfather of Lilibet. And he said that his understanding of the royals came from Diana 25 plus years ago, which is nothing like it is now. And it went over to prove as well how little Harry and Meghan hoped the world knew about the royals and how little they knew Tyler Perry did and how they used that to manipulate him to an extent to feel so bad for Meghan, even though there was a lot more going on. The royal family cannot support paying for Harry and Meghan's security in a foreign country when it was taxpayer funded. Yes, maybe perhaps would take them a little bit of time to get a good security team together. I will totally admit that 3 weeks is not too much time for something that big. However, they also couldn't justify it from a taxpayer expense. And Harry and Meghan griped about that quite a bit. Again, going all back to, we're going to be stalked like Diana. Everything seemed to be related to Diana. Perhaps the biggest thing that I think will destroy William is that Harry used footage from Panorama, both in the first part and in the second part. William has requested that interview never ever be aired again because it was gotten through lies. They lied to her to get that interview. And she made decisions that perhaps led to her death because of the lies that they told her. And so I can see why William is mad. And I can see why William would be incensed that Harry would even think of including that piece of Diana in this reality TV show. And I also felt like Harry and Meghan came across as a bit cowardly in this. They didn't really deal with the biggest issues. They brushed aside the bullying allegations. They didn't even mention the racism allegations at all. That didn't even come up except for Meghan to say that she didn't realize in 2021, just a year after all the riots regarding George Floyd and everything happened in 2020, she didn't realize or didn't think that the comment and the allegation she made about racism within the royal family would somehow have a negative impact on the allegation that she made within the royal family regarding Archie's potential skin color may gather more attention. That was surprising to her because she thought it would be about her mental health. But back to the bullying allegations, I feel like that was a huge thing. They made allegations of bullying, and this has come out multiple times. It's been well documented in Tom Bower's book, in the Times, and so that includes Valentine Lowe's book. So many sources have corroborated and explained what happened behind the scenes, and Harry and Meghan don't even remotely acknowledge it, really. They don't even remotely, it was just a smear campaign. Well, I think there's probably some truth to it, because people wouldn't make serious allegations like that unless they were accurate. And Richard Palmer wrote a great piece in the Express talking about how he's spoken with a lot of those staff members, and they were awful to work for. So this is what he said. For the palace to answer claims of lying and media manipulation, and the silence from that quarter is concerning. But as a royal correspondent for almost 19 years, I have seen no evidence of the mythical contract Harry and Meghan claim exists between the press and the palace to favor one part of the family over another. Harry and Meghan were hugely popular, but lost the support of the British public because of their actions. It was they who broke the unwritten contract between the royal family and the British public by wanting all the benefits of being part of the firm without the sacrifices that go with it. They wanted to make their money from their royal status. They didn't want to share the details of their children's godparents, even though church records of every other child christened in the UK are available to anyone. They were more focused on building their brand in the United States than the UK even before they quit. Even before their wedding, stories were leaking out about how unpleasant they were to work for and to deal with. That wasn't because there was a concerted plot against them directed by the powers that be. It was just what happens if you are part of a large organization where it becomes widely known that your behavior is appalling. I think that's incredibly important to say, is that these rumors, these talks were going around for a long time. Harry and Meghan developed a reputation within the family, within the firm, and that wasn't going to stay hidden forever. And I thought it was funny, Valentine Lowe quipped about, because Harry and Meghan complained, it's like, oh, the timing of the bully allegations. Of course they went against Oprah Winfrey interview. And Valentine Lowe's like, yeah, that's why your staff members wanted to do it. They wanted to dispute what they know you would say in the Oprah Winfrey interview, because they knew it would be this boo-hoo narrative. Poor us. We also didn't get any mention of the bridesmaids fitting disaster or Tiaragate. So these were two huge, I feel like two of the big, huge stories that came out that really started to turn the media machine against Meghan. And again, there is, and I'll go into this more, is that Harry and Meghan, cause and effect is a mystery to them. It is an absolute cosmic mystery that somehow your action can cause a negative reaction, because I feel like they failed to realize throughout all of this, if you treat your staff poorly, they have no incentive to protect you. And they might be more willing to talk to the press because you have been so awful to work for, that they feel like, okay, you know what? Harry and Meghan, they're getting all these glowing articles. Well, she screamed at me and she demeaned me in front of the other staff members. Well, I have a media contacts. You know what? I'm going to tell them you threw a fit about a tiara. Did that never occur to them? Apparently not. It never occurred to them. And I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, but the royal rota and the palace officials, they talk a lot. They work very closely together. So on big tours, the press flies with the royals. And when it came to the Pakistan tour, the press was on the plane with Catherine and William when they went through this very severe storm, and there was a lot of turbulence and everything. And after it was all done and over with, Catherine and William went back and they spoke with the press and chatted with them and said, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing all right? Those things develop goodwill between the people who are the royals, they're the public figures, they will be covered by the press, and those who are responsible for reporting the news, reporting what's going on. And so perhaps if they hear a negative story, they may be less likely to post it because, hey, they know Catherine's a lovely person and, hey, she might just have been having a bad day. But I think Meghan was always having bad days. And we just know she apparently, according to all the reports that we know, she became very demanding in the lead up to her wedding. And I think somebody posted on Twitter, which I thought was interesting, is that the royal family still maybe had a bit of blinders on until the wedding. And I think there were definitely growing unrest within the institution regarding what Harry and Meghan were doing, but I think they thought, well, maybe she just has wedding jitters. Maybe she's just nervous about the big day, and maybe she'll calm down, she'll adjust and everything before then. But no. It just ratcheted up, got a whole heck of a lot worse afterwards, because she became even more entitled, more arrogant. But again, none of this was really resolved. And I feel like, again, part of that is because Harry and Meghan, at the end of the day, I feel like they're cowards. They don't really want to deal with the hard things, so they just sweep them under the rug. I felt the same way when Meghan dropped the Megxit bombshell with Harry. They didn't even bring their son, so she had a quick escape route. And then she abandoned the UK to go back to Canada and to be with Archie, she said. But also I felt like So you drop this bombshell with your husband, and as soon as you can, you're not there to support him. You're on literally the next plane to another continent. That just didn't seem quite right, although it did allow the Sandringham Summit to happen. And so it's just a lot of confusing things here. But again, none of the big issues Harry and Meghan really wanted to deal with. And considering the bullying allegations as well, I feel like Harry and Meghan, they just ignore the plight of the little guy, the little person. Throughout this whole thing, you would think Harry and Meghan were escaping the Gestapo. That's how the freedom flight, we're escaping. The paparazzi are following us. You would think that they are under severe threat. And it's like, guys, you just got bad press. You do know that, right? There's people actually suffering and dying of starvation. There's a war going on in Ukraine. There's very serious things going on in the world. And Harry and Meghan are griping that their press is bad and they can't fix this, and they're perfect. And so they don't understand why the press is bad. And it's just like, you just think to yourself, do you guys not live in the real world? There's so many more important things going on here than your gripes about your family. There's so much more going on in the planet right now than the fact that your father, he won't give you taxpayer-funded security. He won't just give you millions of dollars. Oh, I forgot that. They didn't even mention their demands for money from Charles. That was interesting too. Again, they don't want to deal with anything serious. And they don't really care for the people who are working with them, who are supporting them, anything like that. Those people are disposable. And that's why they've gone through so many staff members, is that they are, to them, I don't feel like ever treated well. So as soon as they can jump ship, they do. And as you watch through the series, it just becomes so apparent how self-obsessed and deluded they are. They really do think they are the Messiah. They have this Messiah complex. They were going to come in and they were going to save the Commonwealth. But did you ever really care about these Commonwealth people that you met? Or were these people just a means to an end for you? You wanted to be the Commonwealth Queen, basically, or the Queen of the Commonwealth. And so you thought your way through was that, but did you really connect with those people? Did you really grow and support those people? Not really. It seemed like the whole Commonwealth thing, the big part of it is that you wanted taxpayer-funded trips around the world. That seemed to be Meghan's primary motivation. Now, again, I could be totally wrong. But again, it just goes to show that I feel like Harry and Meghan don't care about anybody but themselves. And everybody else is disposable. And they just only care about what people can do to help them get ahead. And one of the other things, and I'll end on this for the loser thing, and then I'll go into why the Windsors are winners. And that is that Harry and Meghan, cause and effect, those concepts are totally missing in their vocabulary. They have no stinking idea that action A can cause reaction B. It's shocking. It is utterly shocking when things don't go their way. And then when they do something that has a negative reaction and they're like, well, what happened? So the greatest example is the Megxit bombshell. They seemed surprised that the royal family was not as receptive to their plan as they thought they would be. Harry goes on to say, which I thought was a bit confusing, that he went to Sandringham with his plan. He had a plan, guys. He wrote it all out. He had his plan and they should have followed it. It was a great plan. And the royals go, no, we don't care about that. You have 5 options. That's what he says. And he said he chose basically option 3, which was half in, half out. But that wasn't really totally what was agreed to anyways. And then that agreement went away. So I'm not sure exactly what Harry was talking about there. But anyways, the palace is like, nah, no. And he's like, oh, why? Why wouldn't they go with my thing? And it's just like, there's a couple things there to understand and unpack. Number one, Harry and Meghan had no leverage in this situation. He is the spare and she's the spare's wife. They, to a certain extent, are disposable. Now, Harry and Meghan think that they were critical to the future of the British monarchy because Meghan was mixed race. Ergo, they had to have her. If they could not have her, then the British monarchy is lost. I feel like that was their mindset going in. So they're like, of course they're going to negotiate with us. And it's like, no, you're the spare and your wife is a hindrance. So we're happy to let you guys go. We're happy happy to let you guys go. Not really necessarily, but you understand what I'm hoping you're understanding what I'm meaning is that the royal family was like, hey, guess what? The king, the former king, so this is King Edward VIII, so this is Harry's great uncle, he left the monarchy. He was forced to abdicate. What happened? Well, King George became king, his younger brother. And you know who became queen after that? Why, it was your grandmother. So you weren't even actually, Harry, in the main line of succession to begin with. Your grandmother became that due to the abdication. And what happened? Well, even though he was king and wildly popular at the time, the royal family, they went on just fine without him. So I think it's a good thing to have in mind that you are not the center of the universe. And hey, you know what? Things go on just fine if you're not there. And the other thing I thought was kind of interesting is that, you know, Harry's saying that William screamed and shouted at me. Now there's, again, a couple of different things here. I've heard that William can have a temper. I've heard that of him before, that he does have a bit of a temper. So that he screamed and shouted is not, I don't think, totally unbelievable to me. But Harry dropped this news right before Catherine's birthday. So Harry basically rained all over the parade of Catherine, William's wife. So yeah, William would be PO'd. Harry made this list of outrageous demands and putting stress on every member of the family. And Harry refused to acknowledge any of it. Any of it at all. He's like, well, everybody knew. And it's like, well, you had been negotiating. Nobody knew before you dropped it that you were actually just going to drop the bomb. And because you had listed your demands on a website, that everybody would just go along with it. That was in their mind. Then they moved to California. And they are shocked that paparazzi are in Los Angeles and that there are helicopters flying around their property. And I'm like, do you really think, honestly, that if you move to California that you won't have to deal with more press? Like, what is wrong with you people? It's so obvious. It's so stinking obvious. And again, I know that's hard and that's difficult and everything like that, but you decided to move to a place that is the paparazzi capital of the world, and you have to deal with that. Again, life's tough, get a helmet. They were obviously shocked that their security would be pulled. I know we covered this a little bit earlier. Tyler Perry, exclaimed his indignation, like, how dare their security be pulled? It's like, you guys left. Does that not occur to you that if you leave the royal family, that there may be a reaction to that, and that the taxpayers are not going to be interested in funding your security for people who don't live in your country, A, who are doing no royal works for you, B. There is a symbiotic relationship between the taxpayers and the royals, the media and the royals. There is this relationship dynamic. Harry and Meghan refused to abide by any of that, and then got mad when things didn't go their way, that they got bad press, that the security was pulled, all these different things. I'm like, but you didn't abide by the relationship, the guidelines that are there. Like Richard Palmer said, the contract between the public and the royals. And part of that contract means that you tell the public who the godparents of your child are. You tell them about your family, because part of the relationship is that you give something of yourself and you get something back. There is a cohesion. Harry and Meghan wanted it their way or the highway, and then would get mad when things did not go their way. They would be incensed by it. And it's like, again, does reality, cause and effect are complete mysteries to you guys, that things could go wrong for you, that you are not perfect. I think the other thing was that they were shocked that people were mad about the Oprah Winfrey interview. It's like, well, yes, of course. Why would they not be mad? Again, it's just they're so focused on themselves. They're so focused on their own desires, their wants, their needs, everything like that. They cannot see beyond their own bubble. And the other one I forgot to mention is the Mail on Sunday case. So Meghan obviously sued the Associated Newspapers for publishing the letter of her father. And then she was flabbergasted that they used this entire court proceeding to milk the media machine to make more money off the various things that we got out of the court case. Shocking. And again, it's like, well, you're suing them. They're spending money doing this. Might as well dig up as much dirt as humanly possible. It benefits their bottom line. And that this, again, escaped Meghan. I just wonder, how smart are you? We've been told you are the smartest royal ever. But I'm not seeing a lot of logic here. I'm seeing a lot of delusion, but not a lot of logic. You have to think through these things. That yes, if you do something that, hey, there might be a negative reaction in your future. There might not be something you want to happen, and you will have to deal with that. So I feel like this inability of them to take any responsibility throughout the whole thing. They take no responsibility for any of their actions. And then at the end, Harry goes, well, I'm still waiting for this groveling apology from his father and his brother. And I'm like, you're not going to get it until you at least acknowledge that you were part of the problem, that Harry and Meghan, their actions were part of the issue. Nothing is ever one way. And that's all Harry and Meghan see. They are perfect. They are basically divine. They could do no wrong, especially Meghan. She was portrayed throughout all of this as a saint. At one point, there was this one little bit where I was like, is he trying to say like she's the Messiah or something? Because I'm like, she's just the average lady, guys. She's not really that level. But they go through this and it's like, if you guys could just accept part of the responsibility, you would get somewhere with the royal family. That you're unwilling to do that means they're unwilling to deal with you because it does not help them to deal with you. Because you will not accept that, hey, maybe you did something wrong. Maybe you did something that damaged the family, that put the media in a tough spot. Maybe you were abusive towards your employees. You refuse to acknowledge any of that, take responsibility for any of that. And you have to deal with the consequences, which means Megxit, which means no security, which means struggling with the paparazzi in Los Angeles, which means you don't have good family relationships. And that is, I think, what the saddest thing is this lack of family and familial bonds. Serena Williams said something I thought was really interesting, is that your friends can become your family. And I wanted to go, no. There are some extreme situations. Some people are legitimately orphans. Some people legitimately do not have a lot of family. But your friends cannot become your family. In terms of your family, especially the one that Harry has, which is large, they know you. They've known you from birth until now. They know your idiosyncrasies. They know when you're mad. They know when you're happy. They know your faults and your assets. They know all these different things about you. They know that you went over a prep, maybe peed in a bush in a castle when you were 5. They know that you played these pranks on some of the guards because you thought it was funny. They know those things about you. Friends, especially the friends that Harry has now, which are all Meghan's. He even acknowledged in this piece that he actually does not have a lot of his friends anymore, that he's lost some people through this process, including probably Skippy Inskip, who was his best friend who was with him in Vegas. And the only guy, and there's Arthur Landon, who was a great friend of his. The only guy that they had of Harry's that supposedly went to Eton with him is this guy named Nicky. They couldn't even use his last name. So there are a ton of Harry's friends that I don't think he probably talks too much anymore, and which is incredibly sad. And that's because they don't fit into the mold that Meghan wants. So the family that Harry and Meghan have created, the quote-unquote family, is all Meghan's friends, Hollywood contact people, Hollywood people, those sorts of things. And I'm sorry, but they're not your family. Because at the end of the day, I feel like within a hierarchy, Meghan wants to be on top. And in her hierarchy in Los Angeles, vast majority of the time, she is on the top of the pyramid. Nobody else has a royal title there, but she does. So she can be somebody who's above everybody else. But she couldn't be that in the royal family. And I think Harry and Meghan have made a huge miscalculation here, because the royal family has dealt with all this in nothing but grace. And that's why they will win, and they are the winners. The Windsors have decided no comment, because what that does, I feel like, I know it's frustrating, but it is brilliant, because what it also does is say, Harry and Meghan, they're the crazy people screaming in the corner. We're the sane people. We go on our engagements. We interact with each other. We show family unity. Whereas Harry and Meghan are looking isolated. They're divisive. They don't have this nice family element that Harry and Meghan have. So the Windsors on December 15th. So this will air December 16th because I could not get all of it edited today. It took me a while between work and watching the episodes and everything, and tweeting and watching the Together at Christmas and all that. Couldn't get it all done today. But I will say, all the Windsors showed up for Together at Christmas. Literally, essentially all of them. So we have Charles and Camilla, Catherine, William, George, and Charlotte. We have Zara Phillips and her husband Mike Tyndall, Princesses Beatrice, Eugenie, their husbands. We have Princess Alexandra, the Duke of Kent, the Prince and Princess of Kent. We have Lady Gabriella Windsor and her husband Tom. We have Lord and Lady Frederick Windsor. We have the Countess of Wessex. Basically the entire, I would say, frontline members. Oh, the Duchess of Gloucester. We have the entire frontline member of the royal family. Every basically major household is represented this evening. They all came out in force. They weren't given any questions. The Wales's children arrived to cheers and they didn't react at all to it. Catherine was all smiles. William was all smiles too. And despite what may be going on behind the scenes, they are gliding through it and they are above it. Harry and Meghan are those, they're stuck in the mud and they keep flinging mud at each other and other people, trying to make themselves come out ahead. Whereas the winners are just going, you know what? They can scream in the corner. We have bigger things to do. We are royals. We are the monarchy. We have a Christmas concert to do. We want to lift up the country. The nurses are going on strike, and we are going to give the people a wonderful Christmas concert that represents the Queen, that reminds them of the reason for the season. And we are going to remind them of the power and strength of family, of unity. And that's what I feel like the Windsors represent. I feel like this started in the Jubilee where Harry and Meghan only went to the church service, didn't go to the lunch afterwards, didn't go to any other of the Jubilee events. They were at the Trooping the Color, and then apparently they left and didn't even see the fly pass. And so Harry and Meghan, they don't look like the victors here. They look like the outside fools begging for attention. Whereas the royals come in, they command attention. They are the royals. They are the king and queen. Catherine and William, when they walked in with their children, this is what we saw. 2 future kings, a future queen, and a future princess royal. Harry and Meghan and their kids have none of that. And that's not to disparage their children at all. That's just to say that, hey, the Wales's children, they're higher up in the line of succession. And I would be all for Harry and Meghan doing things their own way. Princess Madeline lives in Florida. Fantastic. Prince Joachim and his wife Marie, they're moving to Washington, D.C. from Denmark. Fabulous. I love it. They don't go around really trashing their family, especially Madeline. Joaquin's a little different because of the whole title stripping situation. But Madeline, even though I think there are struggles internally within the Swedish royal family, she's been above it. She's just been a unified figure. She'll go when she wants to certain events, but she's not dragging and commanding attention. Harry and Meghan, they need to do something else other than dragging their family. They need to prove to the world that they are worth more than trashing their family. Because at this point, it's just less people are interested. And I think more people are becoming wise to the fact that, well, Harry and Meghan, you may have contributed to some of this mess. But Harry and Meghan, they refuse to see it. They refuse to acknowledge that they can have any part in this fallout. And when you see the Windsors, you see them all together going into this Christmas concert, you just think, well, why couldn't you get along with them? They seem perfectly lovely. There was this wonderful moment where Catherine did her first public curtsy to the king because this was her event, so she greeted the king first. And Charles went over and he gave, pecks to both the children, and then both the children also hugged Camilla, and Charles and William greeted each other. It was a beautiful moment. And I feel like family to Harry and Meghan are just whoever benefits them most. If you are higher up than me, if you are a sycophant to me, you are considered my family. Whereas family, they stick through each other through thick and thin. I feel like William, even though he's had a difficult relationship with his father, no doubt, everything that happened with Diana, I'm sure was deeply troubling, damaging, and everything. I love that picture that Catherine managed to get of him and his father, where they were just leaning on each other. And it was just this moment where I was like, you guys may have had this tough relationship. There may have been a point where William really despised Camilla and everything that happened. But William realized that Camilla is really at the heart of it. She's a pretty lovely person. His father loves her. And it would actually honor his mother's memory more to put grievances aside and really be a family together. Allow Charles to be with his grandchildren. Really enjoy each other in this precious time. And not that necessarily you totally need to forget what Camilla and Charles did, but I feel like William showing the maturity of getting over all of it and saying, you know what, I'd rather have my family than my rage, my bitterness, spite, all these negative emotions, which I feel like Harry and Meghan, they thrive on. They are drama, they are toxic, they are all these things which I feel like drags down their brand. And I feel like it would be a very difficult life to lead with Harry and Meghan because there's not peace. Meghan, towards the end, she said, well, I just want peace. It's like, well, you have to create that peace for yourself, and you don't do that by constantly trying to settle a score. And that's what Harry and Meghan are always trying to do, is settle the score. But at this point, again, the royal family is going to come out on top. They've proved that you really aren't worth responding to. You aren't really worth the time of day, arguing with you, debating you about particular topics. It's best just to ignore you. And I feel like when it comes to certain things, especially I've heard of narcissists, apathy is the worst thing you can do. And I feel like the royal family, they're going to turn the screws worse to Harry and Meghan by just simply saying, well, we have no desire to say anything at all. I won't even dignify their comments with a response. And that is brutal, and that is a fabulous strategy to work with Harry and Meghan. Now, I still am an advocate for stripping their titles at some point, but that's going to be a process. And that has to go through the government. There's other things, other stipulations that are part of that. But I feel like Harry and Meghan should just give all this up at this point. Just go and try to create a brand. I will be with you 100%. If you can actually show us a business model that doesn't rely on your titles, that does not rely on trashing your family, prove to us that you are the creative geniuses you guys believe you are. And I will be with you 100%. But until then, I'm going to still continue to criticize you. It's not hate, it's criticism, because sometimes criticism is good. Sometimes criticism can help you grow. But Harry and Meghan never want to hear any of that. So I will continue to do this channel because I love royals and I want to see the monarchy survive. And I feel like, especially when it comes to a decent amount of Americans, the complexities, the intricacies of royalty is a bit of a mystery. And so I'm hoping to enlighten some people who maybe just don't know quite as much. So guys, I appreciate you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this video, and I look forward to seeing you again really, really soon. Bye.